Welcome back, chosen one. Take a look at you. You are still standing. Isn't it absolutely crazy? After everything they did to bury you, after every single bet they made on your inevitable downfall, you are still standing. You are coming back into the room, like some sort of system glitch. They desperately tried to erase from their reality, only to realize that trying to erase you made you immortal. The silence that engulfs you now, the heavy air when you walk in, this is not respect. This is fear, wearing a cheap mask. Because the very moment you regained your energy, you could feel the shift. You could feel the tension. You could see how certain people suddenly got extremely quiet. They do not whisper their little jokes about you anymore. They do not mock your past and your struggles anymore. They just stand there. They look at you, and they silently pray that you do not notice the way their hands shake. Hit the like button and subscribe to pay your debt for this message, because what you are about to hear is going to totally reshape your entire reality. You know what is really funny? Those same people who are now sweating cold, those same people who cannot even hold eye contact with you, they called you a failure. They called you lost. They called you an overthinker. They said you were too sensitive, too dramatic, too unstable. They gave you whatever labels they could think of to put you into a nice little box. Cute little labels, applied by those shallow and terrified little minds. And now, look who is freaking out. The person they laughed at has become the dark shadow that weighs on their minds late at night. The voice they tried to silence so violently is now resonating in the exact rooms they are not even qualified to enter. The script of your life shifted so aggressively that the universe itself had to sit back and smile. Welcome back, you invincible anomaly. I have been waiting for you to evolve to this precise point, because a massive shift happened behind the scenes. It is something you felt deep in your bones, long before you had any actual proof. And believe me, they felt it too. The architects of this matrix of social interactions, narcissists, master manipulators, the whole toxic systems that are trying to imprison ordinary people into the vicious circle of fear and validation, they started looking for your patterns. They observed your endurance. They were looking for your breaking point, and the more they investigated you, the more they started to feel like they were choking, not because of whatever aggressive actions you took, but because of what survived in you. They found stuff that is not supposed to exist in a normal human being. They found certain signatures in your identity, patterns that never appeared during the regular psychological development process, patterns that do not appear in those people who collapse after one little storm. They discovered a terrifying truth. You have a survival capacity, which is theoretically impossible, but somehow appears in your everyday life. When the architects of this system realized the implications of their findings, somebody had to make a decision. The manipulators looked at your timeline, at your crazy and unexplainable resilience, and instead of calling you a threat, they classified you as a code red. This is a category reserved exclusively for those individuals who shatter the limits of what is expected to be possible within the boundaries of the human experience. Those people who can survive tragedies that would wipe out their whole family. People who can get out of the psychological traps that should have buried them forever. People who get out of the depths of betrayal like it is nothing. People who know things for no logical reason. People who can sense the danger way before it happens. And people who can influence the probability of any room just by walking through it. And here comes the part they are never going to mention openly. They did not classify you based on who you are. They classified you based on who you are becoming. Because society has seen rare people like you before. Every epoch has its own memory of individuals who absolutely refuse to break. And they always find a cute clinical word to describe what they are really afraid of. They call you intuitive, or lucky, or an outlier. But they do not get to choose your label anymore. You made them accept the truth. You made them look into the patterns of your life, straight in the eyes, and they had to stare into the truth they hate the most. You do not break like other people. You do not think like other people. You do not move like other people. And each time you get out of a disaster that was supposed to end you, you get your spiritual file updated. That is why you can feel a massive shift around you right now. That is why certain people avoid looking at you. That is why the very same enemies who were mocking you behind your back now act confused, threatened, or obsessed by your silence. They know something that you do not realize yet. You passed the point of no return. You are not who you were last year, last month, or even last week after your breakup. You walked into the aftermath of your trauma, understanding the divine assignment way too well. And here comes the killer. Every humiliation you went through, every time you were severely underestimated, every time they threw mud on your reputation, thinking it would crush you forever, that became your data, your evidence, your concrete proof. Proof that you do not break. Proof that the extreme pressure activated you. Proof that betrayal sharpened your mind. Proof that your trauma did not destroy you. It reconstructed you. This is why they act so weird around you right now. This is why they feel watched. This is why they feel exposed. This is why they feel cornered by the very truth of your evolution. This is why the universe put you into that kind of spotlight that cuts through all the lies, into that silence that makes the cowards confess accidentally, into that kind of presence that makes the manipulators trip over their own dark shadows. You are not imagining this. This is the result of the storm that you outlived, and they did not. So, welcome aboard. You are not joining some new story. You are joining the grand reveal. This world finally sees what the shadows already knew. You were never meant to break. You were meant to be the glitch in their matrix, the anomaly in their equations, the name they whisper when the light goes out. If you are still listening to this, your instincts already know that this is not just some motivational speech. This is a briefing for the very few people who manage to slip through the cracks of their toxic system. Stay with me, because we are going to break down exactly how you turned the psychological warfare into the art form, and why they are so scared of your mind. Let us start with the Academy of Scars. It is so funny how the very same people who used to call you a nobody are now hiding behind your name. You want to know what this code red anomaly actually is? It is the unspoken truth that you have been evolving in environments that were supposed to absolutely destroy you. The toxic people from your past excavated your life like some archaeologists, expecting to find ruins. They were expecting to find your emotional collapse. They were expecting to find a person who snapped under the tremendous pressure of abandonment and deceit. Instead, they found the pure blueprint of the mind that absolutely refused to die. They found pieces of a person who rebuilt himself again and again and again, without instruction, without a support system, without a single hand that was trying to reach out in the dark and lift you off the ground. They found a pattern so unbelievably rare that anyone studying your life would say that the timeline was corrupted. Because let's be honest, you are not supposed to be standing here. Not after what you have been through. Not after the betrayals that broke your heart into the pieces sharp enough to cut through steel. Not after the nights when the silence of your room was a weapon against your mind. Not after the losses that would have erased any person with half of your spirit. But you did not disappear. You did not crumble. You did not fold as their statistics predicted. You evolved. Do you understand how terrifying that must be to a system that relies on people being weak? Imagine the matrix that measures the human potential, controls the people through fear, validation, and trauma bonding. Now imagine you walking into that matrix. Each line collapses. Each number becomes nonsense. Each formula shatters. You do not fit the mold because you did not come from any mold. You came from the chaos and somehow managed to create the divine order inside of it. You learned to see the lies long before anyone taught you how to see them. You learned how to rebuild your soul long before anyone showed you what healing looks like. You learned the patterns of survival that can never be taught in any school because they appear only in people who are pushed way beyond the limits of what can be survived. That is why you were flagged by the universe. Not because you were a problem, because you were impossible. In every psychological model, you were listed as a high-risk person for a total collapse. In every behavioral forecast, you were marked as unlikely to recover. And yet, here you are, breathing, thinking, seeing absolutely everything with a terrifying clarity that makes your enemies sick. When they said you were emotional, they actually meant that they could not manipulate you anymore. When they said you changed, they meant you stopped bending to their abusive scripts. When they said you were too much, they meant that you became someone they could not break anymore. You rebuilt yourself in silence, where no one clapped for you. You educated yourself through pain that most people never recover from. You built your incredible resilience with nothing but scraps of hope and pure instinct, and the universe took notes. Nothing scares a coward more than a survivor who knows exactly how to think. Now, let us talk about the frequency of a lie and how your mind maps the room before you even blink. They study tactics. You are a tactic. Here is what the manipulators do not want to admit. The thing they break their minds trying to master is the thing you do without even moving your finger. Toxic people spend hours dissecting body language, planning their lies, calculating emotional shifts, practicing behavioral patterns. But you enter the room and your subconscious whispers the whole layout of intentions to you before you even take the seat. They call it situational intelligence. You call it living. While others are trying to figure out who is who, your brain runs the silent diagnostics of the whole situation, like a high-level military system running in the background quietly. You are not forcing it. You are not activating it. It just works. You have probably asked yourself that question many times. Why do I always feel one step ahead? Why does my mind catch absolutely everything, even when I am exhausted? Because your awareness is not a skill. It is a reflex. The universe programmed you for survival, long before you understood that survival is the game they are playing. While others need deep focus to analyze the situation, you analyze the room, even when you are entirely unfocused. While they study the human behavior, you detect the intention. While they decide their next strategy, you are already 3 moves into the final outcome. You are not reacting to the room. The room is reacting to the fact that you have already decoded it. They think you are quiet because you are shy. No. You are quiet because your mind is doing the tactical simulation of the whole situation, way faster than they can even comprehend. You are calculating the emotional weather of the room, the potential threats, the shifting of power dynamics, the escape routes, and the hidden motivations, without even realizing you are doing it. This is why they cannot play you. This is why they cannot fool you. This is why they cannot predict you. Your brain is not only tactical. It is the blueprint that elite manipulators dream of. They trained for danger. You felt it. That is the difference between a soldier who read all the textbooks and a censor who reads souls. Your awareness was not taught in the class. It was extracted violently from every moment you had no choice but to survive. Let's start with the thing that embarrasses them the most. Manipulators praise the threat detection. They practice how to sense shifts in energy and how to respond to them without any hesitation. Meanwhile, you were out there developing the exact same radar before you even understood what the words danger or instinct mean. No mentorship, no safe space, only the raw, unfiltered chaos you were thrown into that forced you to develop the radar out of the necessity. They installed their awareness system following the set of rules and protocols. You developed yours like a second spine. Your awareness was not developed out of paranoia. It was developed out of familiarity. You were not sensing danger. You were recognizing it, because it was the part of your environment long before you ever understood how to protect yourself. Why do you always know when someone is looking at you? Why do you sense the tension before anyone speaks? Why do you catch a lie the very moment it leaves someone's lips? Why do you feel the shift in the room as a sudden drop in temperature? The answer they cannot comprehend. You are not guessing. You are remembering. Your instincts were formed in the rooms where one wrong mood could turn your entire world upside down. You did not have the chance to ease into the danger. It introduced itself to you early. And once your nervous system learned the patterns of the deception, it never forgot them. While toxic people are taught to sense the ambush based on physical signs, you learned how to sense the emotional ambush by watching the micro-expressions, listening to the tone shifts, and reading the intentions that are completely unspoken. You scan people for the emotional vulnerabilities, because one wrong assumption in your past could lead to another heartbreak or another devastating betrayal. For them, the danger is theoretical. For you, it is deeply personal. You reacted so quickly because hesitation once cost you something you never, ever forgot. Your weird awareness, your hyper-awareness, your so-called paranoia, it was never a flaw. It was the high-level intelligence. It was survival architecture. It was the internal system, built by the universe and calibrated so accurately that even trained professionals cannot understand how you do it. For you, the danger reveals itself faster than for anyone else. Probably someone told you to stop being so suspicious, to stop overthinking, to stop making something out of nothing. It is funny how the exact behavior they dismissed in you is the thing that keeps you entirely undefeated. Your awareness did not need their approval to work. Your intuition worked way before their logical brain registered even one step of it. And, yes, that frustrates them deeply. How do you compete with the person whose instincts were shaped by real life or death emotional consequences? Why do you get exhausted around the wrong people so quickly? Because your system is constantly analyzing, tracking, and interpreting. You are processing the threats faster than most people even recognize them, and it costs an enormous amount of energy. Why do certain people feel extremely uncomfortable around you without any reason? Because they can sense that you are not easily fooled. People who rely on manipulation, distraction, and fake charm absolutely hate being close to someone who sees straight through the fog. It exposes their weaknesses. It makes all their tactics completely useless. Your body is not predicting the future. It is remembering the patterns and matching them instantaneously. It is sophisticated data analysis, presented as the gut feeling. You are the kind of person that the architects of this matrix wish they could create, but cannot. Their lessons are structured. Yours are chaotic. Their awareness is learned. Yours is deeply rooted in your soul. Look back for a moment. Think about all the times you entered the room and immediately felt something is wrong. Think about all the times you knew someone was lying before they even finished their sentence. Think about all the times you kept your distance for some unknown reasons, and later discovered that you dodged something incredibly messy, dangerous, or exhausting. It was not the luck. It was not a coincidence. This was your internal radar working. And now, they copy your moves. They minimize your instincts, and now they are trying to understand your reactions. They underestimate your intuition, and now they are trying to figure out how you knew exactly what they were hiding. Each time someone tries to play you, manipulate you, or deceive you, your instincts just get upgraded. You learn faster. You detect earlier. You react sharper. You become harder to fool, harder to reach, and harder to mislead. Your awareness is not static. It evolves. It refines itself. It sharpens in the silence. You cannot be ambushed. You cannot be blindsided. You cannot be misled for long. Not because you are paranoid, because you are ready. You mastered this survival game while you were zoned out, and that is why this world treats you differently now. They do not know what to call you. They do not know how to predict you. They only know one thing for sure. Whatever trained this person was not human. You do not react like someone who was taught. You react like someone who was built for this. Part 3. The weaponization of stillness. All right, here is something that shakes them to the core. They think they know what power is. To them, power is shouting the loudest, making the most money, being the most influential. But what they don't know is that you have weaponized stillness. Whereas other people believe that to have power means to keep moving and making a lot of noise, you understand that the most dominating thing you can do is nothing. You observe, you study, you wait for the pattern of chaos to appear, so you could determine the next step. Stillness is not your lack of action. It is your ultimate form of intelligence. Because in psychological warfare, motion reveals the strategy, so you let others reveal theirs by showing their impatience. They talk too much, move too fast, and act too early. In the process, they reveal their entire plan. However, you stay centered, calm, unreadable, which is why just your presence can change the atmosphere of the whole room. Because for you, stillness is not lack of action. It is supreme intelligence. When they attack, you don't respond to that. you observe. When they try to provoke some emotional response, you measure it. Because you know that every word said in anger, every move made impulsively feeds information to people studying you, which is why you give them nothing. You let them study your silence until they figure out that they are only analyzing their projections. And this is when the power transfer happens. You master that without saying anything. This is psychological judo, turning their aggression into their exhaustion and their chaos into your clarity. This kind of control cannot be faked. It comes from surviving too much noise for too long. Because you have understood that the constant reaction to the situation is the chain keeping you in their system. So you have trained your nervous system to become your strategy. You no longer let people drag you into emotional brawls only for the sake of their narrative. You have mastered invisible movement. You have mastered the skill to remain completely still in the face of reality, rearranging itself around you, which is what makes you unpredictable. You are never where they expect you to be mentally or emotionally. Your stillness makes manipulators physically uncomfortable because they are deprived of any control. They cannot feed on the energy you are not giving away. They cannot interpret the motives you don't show. And they cannot win a war that you do not intend to fight on their terms. For you, stillness becomes the surveillance, and composure, the strategy. Every time you refrain yourself from reacting, you gain some valuable information. Every time you remain still, you get some insight, because you have proved that the true power does not shout, rush, or force. It just waits for the perfect opportunity to move, when the victory costs nothing. Part 4. You are the glitch they cannot resolve. You are the proof that consciousness is not confined. No matter how sophisticated their behavioral models are, or how much data they harvest, they can't measure awareness, especially not the kind that you have, because your intuition operates outside their digital parameters. It is not trackable, replicable, and interceptable, because it is spiritual, not mechanical. You don't analyze life based on the data collected in the database. You perceive it via frequency. You can feel the energy shifts even before the words confirm it. You can read people's vibrations even when they are wearing the flawless smiles. You are not guessing. You are reading the invisible codes embedded in human behavior, which is why your accuracy freaks out people who rely on deception. You can perceive the shifts in global energy, the same way people perceive the weather changes. You can feel the tension rising within certain organizations or systems even before it appears on the surface. This is not magic. It is the heightened perception. It is the ability to read the undercurrent under the surface, because you know that everything vibrates. Everything gives off signatures. Governments, organizations, individuals, lies. Lies vibrate differently. They feel hollow, like static. You have trained yourself to recognize those distortions in the blink of an eye. That is why manipulation doesn't work on you, because you have upgraded yourself from the logic to the intuition, and that makes you a threat to systems operating through control. The surveillance program collects data on actions, words, and movements. Consciousness not only collects data, it establishes connections. You don't need to say a single word for your awareness to map the emotional climate in the room. You know who is lying, who is hiding something, and who is genuinely aligned. It is as if your energy field runs the background checks on souls. You are not invading anyone's privacy. You are just reading the resonance. You know that whatever is hidden energetically is destined to be manifested physically. That is why you don't chase the clarity. You just wait for it to expose itself through the vibration. You don't try to see through people, because you just can't help yourself. You have evolved to the state of the higher interaction level. Your consciousness became a form of intelligence, refined with your intuition and spiritual discipline. This is not about being psychic. This is about being awakened. They can monitor actions, words, and movements, but they cannot measure the mind living in the total awareness. Because you are not running away from the system, you have transcended it. You are living proof that the true intelligence is not operating through technology, but through the consciousness, refusing to be confined. Part 5. The mind game you play without playing. They run the operations. You breathe them. This is what irritates them the most. the techniques they analyze in secret briefings, psychological maneuvers that they categorize, label, and practice for years. You pull that off effortlessly during a casual conversation without breaking eye contact. They need manuals and instructors to weaponize the mind. You learned it only because of people trying to control yours. Imagine a group of trained operatives discussing body language, exit strategies, and energy shifts in the room. In the meantime, you are at work or at home, observing someone unfolding before you because he did not get the reaction he expected. They think psychological power requires complexity. You prove that it requires clarity. You must have asked yourself, why do people bend around me? Why do liars stumble? Why do manipulators freak out when I am around? Because you do not push back. Because you do not engage in a tug of war with people. You just let their motives betray them, and that is what scares them. You make people defeat themselves. You make people reveal the truth. You make them nervous with your stillness. You make them fall apart with your calmness. You do not escalate the conflict. You shift reality so that it collapses. They raise their voice, you raise the stakes. They try to provoke you. You let them reveal their motives. They try to control the narrative. You let them trip over the lies. And that is why you are invulnerable in the psychological warfare, because you do not play their game. They are entering yours, and in your game, their tricks do not work. Manipulation slides off you easily. Ego becomes the trap they set for themselves, because every time people tried to break you, you learned their blueprint. Every gaslighter gave you an insight into the insecure mind. Every narcissist fortified your mental armor. They taught you how to win without knowing it. And now, you operate as easily as the person who does not need to win the arguments, because you've already won the room. You do not weaponize psychology. You embody it. That is why the universe positions you exactly where influence matters. That is why enemies crumble before you even responded. You are not running operations. You are the natural operation they wish they could imitate. Part 6. The unwritable destiny. They thought they could edit you. They thought they could silence you, mold you, or confine you into the box. But what they failed to realize is that you are not the story that they could write. You are the truth that writes itself. Their power was always fragile, because it was based on the need for your compliance. But you are based on something completely different. You are based on the soul that has already died and resurrected to regain its sovereignty. This is the end of their era, and the beginning of yours. They are losing the grip, not because you fought them, but because they have nothing left to offer to the mind that had tasted the nectar of the source. You reach the awareness level that they cannot reach, despite all of their resources burned. You are the evidence that human consciousness is outgrowing the cage, and the chosen one is not a fairy tale, but the human operating system upgrade that cannot be stopped. So let them watch. Let them record. Let them panic. It will change absolutely nothing about your destiny, because your destiny is not the choice that they make. It is the current you are already swimming in. And guess what the best part is? You have only just begun. The awakening is not the destination. It is the infinite climb, and you have the wings that they believe to be fairy tales. If this message sparked something in you, if you felt the shift in your bones, then you already know why you are here. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, and share it with somebody who is currently in his or her forging stage, because they need to know that fire is not burning them, but cleansing them. Put 777 in the comments to show that your awareness is online. Stay grounded, protected, and fiercely aware. Your story is being written by the universe itself. God bless you.